Hey guys, it's Hazel here. Welcome back to another video. Today's going to be a rather serious topic, so if you are not ready for a serious topic, you probably should click off the video. This is going to be talking about something on the creepy side, I guess. Not really creepy, more just upsetting and disturbing. So I'm going to put my little warning right there. The reason why I'm swirling around is because oops, I banged the tripod. But I like swirling around when I tell stories, so you're gonna have to deal with that. Anyway, so this is going to be my story, I guess you could say. My own little story, my experience with a certain word. How do I put this best without getting completely cucked and age restricted? You know what, I'm just gonna come out and say it because I feel like it's a story that needs to be told, and it's an educational story, so if YouTube has a problem with it, like age restricts it, whatever, that's on them, not me. Pretty much there was one time in my life where I was sexually harassed, and it was a hard time for me. I was young. I was only in 10th grade. So this is no YouTuber, no streamer. I'm not picking apart. I'm not throwing accusations at like someone like Pyrocynical or like someone like that. My dog's down here, so if you hear him moving around, that's just what you hear. But anyway, as I was saying, this is just some person I met in 10th grade that I just wanted to share the story because I told this story on my Twitch stream. It took like half an hour to tell this story. And they were just like, hey, you know what? Maybe you should tell it on a YouTube channel. I asked if I should. They said yes, so here we are. And the link for my Twitch will be in the description if you want to see the whole, like, an unfiltered, unedited story. It's one of my most recent broadcasts. But anyway, as I was saying, let's just get right into the story. Let's start with, my dog is going upstairs now. I'm sorry if you can hear that. This all happened back in 10th grade with one girl, okay? We'll keep her private. So we'll call her, I called her Rose in the stream, so we'll call her Rose here as well. So Rose was in 10th grade with me. She was the same grade as me. That's still my dog, if you can hear that. And let's just give some more context to the situation. Back then especially back then, but even it applies now a little bit, is, I really was bad around people. Like, I had, like, not really social anxiety, but, like, I didn't like social situations that much. It kind of freaked me out and stuff like that. So, whenever I was in a class where I didn't recognize someone, or, like, I didn't have a friend, I would kind of, like, cling to the shadows and, like, not try to make new friends or something like that. And that's how it was in 10th grade. So, this girl, Rose she and I have been in the same band class since 6th grade, so 6, 7, 8, 9, that's gonna be the 5th year that I have, like, recognized her. I never knew her, per se, I never talked to her, I never did anything like that, but, yeah, she was in my band class, so she was a face I recognized, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's where the context is from. She was in my band class for several years, and really 10th grade, not only because of this, but just 10th grade was, like, the worst year of my life, so we're trying to, I feel like getting it out in the open might kind of get rid of those bad memories where I can, like, really move on with my life, become that powerful person I want to be. But anyway, as I was saying, she was in my band class for several years. And this is the start of 10th grade. So it was, like, the first, like, day of school. It was the last day of August, I think, was when we started school. And I noticed that in my gym class, I recognized, like, no one. Literally no one. I had no friends in that class. And the way my gym class works at school is it's not really that great. They don't force you to play any games. It's not like actual physical education as the course, like, suggests. My dog is running around upstairs. I'm so sorry if you can hear him. There's no one home, so he's just playing with himself. But anyway, that sounded better in my head. And never mind, he's back. He was just grabbing a bone to bring down here. Hi, Major. Here, let's show you. Cute little dog. I don't know how the camera's picking that up, but I hope you picked it up at least a little bit. Just for a little bit of to get rid of the tension from the story, maybe. Anyway, so back to the story. So the physical education class, as I was saying, pretty much the requirements to get credit for the day, is you need to walk around the area. You have to get changed and walk around, and you get credit for the day. You get 100. See? It's not exactly like a beautiful way to spend your time in school. You could be doing like a study hall instead, which is even more useful. But either way, as a teenager, like 10th grade, I didn't exactly want to walk around alone. That didn't really appeal to me. I think you can understand that as like a 10th grader, you don't want to look like some loser outcast, like it doesn't matter nearly as much to me now, or even like back in junior year, that didn't matter to me nearly as much. But in 10th grade, I was kind of just like, I don't want to look lame, like it was kind of like one of those things where I didn't want to look like a stupid idiot. So I recognized Rose, right? She was walking with her friend Juliana, and we're gonna call her Juliana, okay? My dog's down here. I'm gonna give him some pats to give me some energy. But yeah, so I walk up to them because I recognize her from band class for several years. And I asked to walk with her. And that's where everything started. The last day of August, first day of school, I got to walk with the two of them. So, that's how we met. Like, officially met, became, like, friends and stuff. Like, I never talked to this girl beforehand. It was just, like, oh, I'd see you. Your face I recognize. I see you on all the concerts. I had a couple classes with you, like that kind of stuff. And at the time, like in 10th grade, I also had a band class at the beginning of the day with her. So I got to see her at band first and then gym after. But gym was where most of what happened occurred. So where do I even start? Let's start at the beginning of the year, okay? Let's start in like more September. Really, I was very awkward for the first couple, even weeks, more than days. Like I was gonna say days, but even for the first couple weeks, I was very awkward around them. Not because like I didn't like them, or I thought they were fine. I thought we were like, we bonded enough. We were both kind of like, how when you put free like teenage girls who were all 10th graders together, they're kind of edgy. Like we're kind of like, we're kind of a bunch of. That's my dog running away. But anyway, as I was saying, when you put free teenage girls together, they're gonna be edgy, right? We talked about a lot of dark stuff, right? It was just kind of natural. Juliana talked about her home life, her home situation. Excuse me. And it was pretty sad. And something that a lot of us had in common was that we all kind of just bonded with each other. We had that little bond. We had that little group that we could stick with. Now, this is actually important to the story. I'm not just saying it to say it. At the time that I met them, and I assume it's still this way today, but I'm not sure. I'll get into why later. I'll explain it. But Rose is a lesbian, just to put that out there, and Juliana is a bisexual. And I'm not saying there's any problem with that. I should be the last person saying there's a problem with that. After all, I am. Anyway, so that is important to the story. We'll get into why that's important later. But anyway, as I was saying, we bonded over, like, usual kind of, like, not really loser or outcast, but, like, varying views. Like, something that you wouldn't expect a girl to really think about or something like that. We bonded over that kind of stuff. Like, we bonded over, like, anime. We bonded over just, like, edgier clothing, stuff like that. You know how 10th graders think. I take a shot every time I say that. But anyway, so come like the middle of September, everything is perfectly fine. I don't remember all of our conversations, so some of this might be not 100% accurate, but I still remember the big things, which obviously are the most important part. But the small things is that we talked a lot about, at the time, I had a crush on someone. Normal 10th grade things. I really liked this guy, actually. And I talked about him a lot. I talked about our conversations. I didn't like go into detail or anything like that, but my dog is dropping his giant Kong around on the floor. I'm sorry. My dog always ends up distracting my videos. But anyway, as I was saying, where was I? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, I was talking about the person that I liked. And this is also important to the story, especially later, is that I really liked this guy. we gave him a little nickname because he had, like, fluffy hair. I called him, like, Fluffy Boy or something like that. I was in 10th grade. Okay, listen, I'm cringing at the thought of it, but he had, like, fluffy hair, and I really liked his hair, so we called him Fluffy. And I had a good chance with him, and I made sure to show that very well. And I'm especially saying that now because, like I said, it is important much later. It is very important later, actually. So is the whole saying that they are, you know, part of the LGBTQ community. That's also important. But that was around that time when I started mentioning the person that I liked, right? I liked this person for several months, at least half of my sophomore year. So, yeah, it's really hard to film when your dog is just jumping around up there. I'm sure you guys can hear all the pounds against the wall. Yeah, so we really spent a lot of the time talking about what I'd describe as hot topic ad chicks talking. We talked about all the, like, fake bracelets that Rose wore on her wrist. She wore all these fake black leather bracelets that were really edgy. Like, they had, like, bullets on it or skulls, and she got reprimanded a few times for wearing them, is what she told me at the time. Juliana talked about her family a lot. She talked about her home life, everything like that. She talked about people she was interested in, just like me. She also talked about wanting to move, and eventually I'm pretty sure she did move away with her father. I think so. I think that happened. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't spoken to her since 10th grade, but I think she did end up moving. But Juliana isn't really important to the story. It's not really Juliana. All I know is that Rose and Juliana have been friends for, I think, years before this. That's why they were walking together. So, really, we listened to music. Sometimes we shared earbuds, you know, that kind of stuff. We were becoming good friends. I think this is really important to establish that we were good friends, you know. We didn't really get too deep into depressing topics until later in the year. You know how that goes, where, like, when your friendship deepens, you start getting into more, like, trusted topics that you don't really want to mention around someone you just have as an acquaintance or something like that. So, at first, it was really lighthearted topics. Like I said, it was, like, anime, it was, like, video games, what we like, music, all that kind of stuff. It was to the point where we really became close with each other. Not really, like, best friend close, we're not going to go that far, but we were good friends. And I trusted them, I did. But eventually, it started getting more just Rose and me, I guess you could say. Is that we started talking a lot more, we got along pretty well. We had a bunch of, like, similar interests. Back then, I really just liked to listen to people. I didn't really like to talk about myself that much. Even now, I still don't really like to talk about myself that much. The only thing I'll really talk about myself on end is, like, I don't know, film. I really like talking about film. That's about the only thing that I'd really talk about. Even back then, I didn't know, like, I wasn't even as a big film or theater geek, so as you can tell, I didn't talk about myself that much. It was mostly me just listening to them, and I was perfectly fine with that. I like listening to people. That's the whole point in my life. I just like to listen to people. I like hearing people's stories. That's why whenever I'm on stream, I always ask you to share your stories with me. I know a lot of people ask about that, so there's your answer. But yeah, eventually Rose and I just started talking more and more and more, and we became a lot closer. And Juliana kind of sensed that she was on the out a little bit, and I felt really bad. Rose told me that it was going to happen, that Juliana was going to, like, leave us for her other friends in the gym class. And I was like, well, we should probably include her more and stuff like that. And we were kind of just like, I don't know. But she ended up moving away from us and just going to her other friends. We still spoke to her every once in a while, but really, especially towards the end of the story, like the later months, we really didn't talk to her that much ever again. So that's the last I'll really mention of Juliana. She wasn't very important to the story, but I thought I'd just mention that it wasn't always just Rose and me. I feel like it's important to mention that there was also someone else there. It wasn't just me and her. I have to take a hydration break. This episode of Depressing Stories is sponsored by water. Please sponsor me. So this is really where the heavier stuff starts to come into play. So I'd say Juliana left us at about the October mark, okay? Probably mid-October. I could be remembering it wrong, but I know there was at least a solid 2 or 3 months where I was just with Rose. And keep in mind, the story lasts until the last day of August to February 14th, Valentine's Day. That's about where everything ends. That's, like, my experience. But then there's also a few experiences down the line that I'll talk about. Even now, I still have a few experiences that I want to talk about. that involve Rose, and we'll talk about it. But for now, let me just stay on target. Sorry, Star Wars reference. Anyway, so we started talking about deeper topics. Like, we would talk about the strangest things, like what's the meaning of life, stuff like that, like what's love, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, that's not a problem on the surface, because obviously with my best friend now, we talk about these strangest, most random things on the planet, so I'm the last person to judge conversations about that kind of stuff. It was really more about the fact that it slowly started getting darker, to the point where, like, this isn't something you tell someone who you've only known for a couple months. This is something you tell someone for years, or a therapist. Like, literally, this is the kind of stuff that you tell a therapist, not a friend, you know? It started getting to the point where I found out why she wore the fake leather bracelets, right? I told you it would be important. Pretty much, she wears them because she has tried to commit suicide multiple times. I'm not going to try and censor myself. This is a very dark subject, and I warned you about that already. If I get age restricted, I don't even care, because this is an educational topic. I'm literally, like, releasing this video to spread awareness about sexual harassment, and I'm trying to make sure that no one, like, feels bad about it. I'll get more into the, like, why I'm making this later, but yeah, I think you can kind of tell already why I'm making this. But yeah, she has tried to commit suicide multiple times before. It really was like a slower build-up to this kind of thing, but I don't remember all the conversations we had, obviously, so I'm not going to go over every single one because they're not even important. So it really slowly started to get darker. Like I said, she would show me her wrists, and she, like, refused to take off her bracelets for the longest time. And still to this day, I never really, like, completely saw. But when she did take it off, I didn't see anything crazy. Like, it wasn't, like, so apparent. I assume she was telling the truth. I would never say, oh, you're not telling the truth, you're lying, whatever. Because, I mean, I've never tried to do anything like that. So I'm not going to, like, say, oh, I'm not going to try and write off something as, like, not true if I've never experienced it. But I didn't see any, like, scars. She claimed she had, like, scars. I didn't see, like, anything except for maybe a tiny little line right there. But even then, that could be a coincidence. Like, I have a little, this camera won't be able to pick it up, but I have, like, a little scar on my pinky. Like, you won't be able to see it on my camera. I'd have to take an up-close picture. I have a scar on my pinky that looks similar to a scar that, like, when you, like, that it looks similar to something like that. But, so it could be just a coincidence. I didn't see any marks on this side of the wrist, but the only thing that I definitely did see is that every once in a while, she would, like, she would show me her cuts on, like, her stomach, okay, which were nasty. I didn't ask, but yeah, I mean, she would tell me about all the times she cut herself. She would tell me about all the times she tried to commit suicide. And that kind of stuff, it hurts someone like me. I can't just listen to that and be okay afterwards, especially when this is someone I'm starting to grow fond of. A new friend who I think that I could actually be friends with in the future. Spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. But yeah, I was kind of just like, oh wow. So I really took on the role of, like, the, not really mom or therapist, but, like, that really close friend who was, like, there by her side. And I felt bad for her. I genuinely did, because she would go into detail about how messed up and horrible her life was. She would talk a lot about how her parents were dead, okay? She would mention how her parents were dead all the time. It was something that came up a lot. She would always mention, it's like, if I ever complain about my parents or anything like that, because you know how 10th graders are. They complain about, like, strict, I have rather, not as strict as I used to be, but I used to have strict parents, especially back in 10th grade. They were very strict. So, I would always be like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Like, just general, like, I was, like, 15, 16 at the time. I was like, oh, I don't, I can't even go to a football game anymore without them complaining, that kind of stuff. And then she would reply with, at least you have parents, kind of thing, She would always, like, every single time she'd reply with that. And that was when I started to get a little annoyed, because just, like, bro, listen, I let you complain about all your issues all day long. Can you just let me say that I just want to get it out in the open. That's what friends are for, to kind of, like, go back and forth about that kind of stuff. But she would always say, at least you have parents, stuff like that. And it made me feel bad every single time. And obviously that's going to be important later. I think you're getting a general sense that most of the things I'm saying now are going to be important later. But, yeah, anyway, as I was saying, she had mentioned about how her parents were dead all the time, and she said how she went through the foster care system for most of her life. Now, she never told me, or I don't remember at least, what actually killed her parents, or if they just died from disease or old age or something like that, or if they left her. I don't know. I don't remember that much, because this was a couple years ago now, so I don't exactly remember everything, like I said. So, like I said, some of these things might be little inaccurate, but the overall picture and all the big things are 100% true. Okay, that's definitely true. Like, all the cut marks she showed me, the bracelets, her stomach, her parents dying, the foster care system, that is all 100% true. But like I said, some of the smaller details, I'm not going to, like, that's why I'm trying to skip over the smaller details, because those are the things I don't remember as clearly. But yeah, this is kind of, it's starting to get, the closer we get to, like, the bad parts, the more I'm getting a little more anxious, so I'm sorry if I seem like it. But, yeah, I mentioned I don't like being touched, and I also keep in mind that for the entirety of this year, even like more than just the 6 months, I like this guy, and I mentioned it over and over again. Okay, you know, 10th grader me. But anyway, yeah, so she would respect that for the most part. I wasn't totally convinced that she would. In fact, the more things went on, the more convinced I was that she was going to completely violate my boundaries. She got more touchy as times went on. She never, like, really, like, touched me or anything like that. I'm not trying to make it sound like this was an assault. It was strictly harassment. I'm not going to try and overplay it or make it overly dramatic, because that's not true at all. I'm not trying to tell something that's not the truth. But yeah, she would often, like, poke my shoulder or something like that, or she'd, like, squeeze my shoulder. It was nothing serious, but, you know, still enough to make me slightly uncomfortable, because I said I don't like touching. And she was my friend, so I let it slide a little bit, but since she was a lesbian and I had a suspicion at the time, especially by December, I had a suspicion in November, but by December I had a suspicion that she had feelings for me. So I was kind of, like, cautious of how much I let her touch me, because I didn't really want to, like, lead her on or anything like that, because that wasn't what I was trying to do, especially when I mentioned that I like some guy. I thought that me mentioning that I liked a guy would be enough to get her to, like, you know, respect boundaries, but even then she seemed to still call me this pet name, to still tap on my shoulders and everything, and, you know, compliment me, and that's not a problem in itself, the complimenting part, but we'll get into it later, actually. Another thing that I found a little strange is that I put on chapstick all the time. All the time. I love chapstick. I actually have graham cracker chapstick. I love my chapstick. I spent $20 gazillion on chapstick, but yeah, she would never be able to look at me when I put on chapstick. Again, that in itself is not a big deal, but when you combine everything, it kind of does become a little bit of a red flag, you know? When you combine the lying to me about food, lying to me about where you sleep, lying about why you can't look at me when I put on chapstick, and touching my shoulder, calling me pet names, well, it kind of adds up to a point where you get deeply uncomfortable with this person. This went from a peaceful little friendship from someone I recognized for several years to really not fond of this person anymore, because I'm deeply uncomfortable with all the things she has been saying. Now, like I said, I also have band with Rose at the time, right? So I saw her, like, first thing in the day. Band was, like, my first period, and then I got to see her at the end of the day for an extended period of time. So this is where the creepiness starts to set in, all right? This is where the harassment level stuff starts to set in. So obviously she would walk me out till band and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, I'm supposed to see her twice a day. Now, up until this point, I didn't see her that much during the day. I saw her twice. I got to talk to her for like 40 minutes in gym, even less than that, because, you know, gym, you have to change too, so that takes up like 10 minutes each, like 5 minutes changing, 5 minutes changing back, that kind of stuff. But I started noticing that I saw her a lot more. And by that I mean is that even when I was going to classes that I didn't have her, like I said, I only had 2 classes with her, I would still see her, like, in a hallway somewhere. And that on itself, oh, that's not a big deal. But keep in mind, I already had several months of the year, right? This isn't like I'm adjusting my course because it's an easier way to get to class. This is why am I seeing you around every corner now? Why do you know where I'm going to class all the time? You know, that kind of stuff. And that kind of like gave me a little bit of a red flag, but at the same time I was like, it's not a big deal. I can write that off. That's not a big deal. You know, you see people in the hallway. Maybe I just didn't notice it before. It's totally possible that I just didn't notice it before. I feel like I would, especially when I have a new friend. I'd be like, oh, wow, I recognize her, right? She's my new friend. But I don't know if I just wasn't looking until the red flags went off, or if she just started actually finding out which ways I went to class to try and see me. I don't know. That's totally possible. I don't know if she was that crazy yet. But that's, like I said, that's just a toss-up. That's not 100% factual that she was hunting me down to see me before classes. That's just, from what it felt like she did. That's just how I felt. But this is where it starts getting a little upsetting. We have gym, right? And she's a girl, like I said, lesbian. We change in the locker room together. So pretty much, I don't know if I didn't notice this before or if it just started, but we would change together because obviously I was uncomfortable around anyone else. This is back before I was really confident in my own body. Like, I was very uncomfortable. This is back before I started doing my daily workouts to the point where I felt really like myself in my own skin. But I was very uncomfortable, and I hated when people looked at me when I was showing skin. I never wore, like, revealing clothes. I always wore, like, stupid, like, long sleeve shirts and stuff like that. Like, even when I went to gym that year, I would always wear like a sweater or like something, like a flannel over my clothes, so then I didn't even show my arms, you know, that kind of stuff. I was very sensitive back then. So imagine my horror when I see this girl staring at my legs while I'm changing. And this isn't like, oh, one time fluke, like, oh, you get caught, you look away, that kind of stuff. Like, you know, sometimes when you are attracted to someone, you can't help but look at them, okay? That's not a big deal. But when I'm changing in front of you in the locker room, you know, with nothing on, like, except for, like, my undergarments, and you're staring at me, not once, not twice, but throughout the entirety until February, from mid-December to February, where you're staring at my legs, that it makes me extremely uncomfortable, okay? Now, listen, I know my legs are like a flashlight. I mean, look at me. Like, I'm literally, my friends literally call me Casper the Friendly Ghost because of how white I am. I'm literally like albino. I'm not even kidding. Like, this does not do my skin justice. I'm not even kidding. Maybe I'll show a picture of just better lighting of how pale I really, like, it's honestly disgusting how pale I am. But yeah, so I know they're a flashlight, so it's easy to see, but that doesn't give you the right to just shamelessly share, like she would shamelessly stare at them. And even when I caught her, like, she would like hesitate for a second, then look away, you know, that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, you can't look at me while I'm putting on chapstick, but you can shamelessly stare at my legs. Yeah, that totally makes sense. It made me that's when I got extremely uncomfortable. And the worst is yet to come. She started getting a little bit more, like, she would be more adamant about poking my shoulders and stuff like that, because it seemed like the only kind of touching I was actually remotely okay with. Even then, I would always flinch under her touch, and even then, like, I just got more uncomfortable as the days progressed, because every day it was more of the same. It was more, oh, this is how horrible my life is, oh my god, it's horrible, disgusting, I don't want to live anymore, and that obviously resulted in me saying, no, 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 you are young, you're fine, you are loved, and a reminder to everyone, I feel like this is a good place to put it, is that you are loved, you really are. If you're going through a difficult time, everyone does, okay? It's part of life, and sometimes difficult times are extremely difficult to the point where you feel like you can't breathe. It goes down on your chest like you can't breathe, and I'm not going to pretend like I completely know that feeling. I have suffered from depression in 10th grade especially, like I said, worst year of my life, to the point where I did have thoughts where, you know, that kind of stuff. But I am here now in front of you, and I do assure you it does get better. I am so happy now. I am so much happier. I have wonderful friends. I have a wonderful, like, Twitch stream. Like, I don't mean to plug myself too often here because this is supposed to be a serious story, and obviously you're not going to take me seriously if I plug my stuff constantly, but really, I am extremely happy streaming. We've been doing so well, and I really want to take that moment to thank you as well. Thank everyone who's watching this video just for watching it and stuff like that. But I'll get back into the story now, but I just feel like it's important to know that you are loved, you are, and it always does get better. So moving back into the point of the story is, I would always give her a speech about how it's okay to struggle, it's okay to not know who you are yet, it's okay to have really bad experiences in life, and it feels horrible, and it does, but there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. I guarantee that. And I told her that every single time. And it became to a point where I was telling her that every single day, and I was reminding her that she has friends who care about her, like me. And then she would often reply with, oh, you're always the only one who cares. Which, again, in itself is not a problem. That's not a problem at all. I'm not trying to make it sound like it is. It's just leading up to the problem, the main problem. The main problem I have was, obviously, the staring, the pet name that I said I was uncomfortable with, that she's still... And, sometimes you don't remember those things, but I do remember saying, don't call me that. I remember saying it at least 4 times. At least, I can think of 4 separate occasions where she called me the pet name and I told her, don't call me that. I can think of it, okay? Number 3 is all the poking with the shoulders and stuff, even though I said I don't like to be touched. Now, again, that's not too big of a problem. She's a friend, but I was a little bit more cautious because, like I said, she was calling me a pet name and staring at my legs. So that's the kind of thing where, you're like, stop. And it really just, it got to a point where it was January now at this point. I dealt with the staring of the legs for a good month. We'll say this is end of January, early February, right? So, a whole month of dealing with all this stupid stuff that I didn't want to put up with. It was progressively getting worse. The more she stared, the more she got shy whenever I put on chapstick, that kind of stuff. She just progressively got closer and closer to me, which, again, getting closer to someone is not a problem, but it was a dangerous kind of close, right? It seemed like it didn't seem like a healthy connection, right? But then it went from 50 to 100, really, really fast, okay? So we're gonna say, I think this was the first week, or it was the week before Valentine's Day, right? So, a week before Valentine's Day, we were sitting in band class. It was a free period, I remember that. I think our teacher was absent, and we just started talking for the entire class. I was doing some work, and she pops the question, do you want to know what I like about you? And you know how teenagers think. Even now, I want to know what people think about me. I'm still young. I want to know that kind of stuff. I want to know what people think. I always do. I think most people can agree with me there. So, of course, my idiot self said, sure. And she's like, oh, well, you're going to have to guess. So, not to toot my own horn, but I got a few of them correct. I said, oh, you think I'm intelligent? And she's like, yeah, I think you're very intelligent, very smart. And I'm like, oh, you think I'm pretty? And she kind of got a little shy, and she's like, I think you're gorgeous. And I'm like, thanks. That wasn't really a big deal. I was just like, thanks, because I call my friends downright sexy all the time. I'm like, oh my God, see you Friday night, that kind of stuff. But the difference is that I don't stare at their legs while they're changed or call them pet names or aggressively tap their shoulders or squeeze their shoulders or anything. It's also important to mention that every once in a while, she would ask for a hug and stuff like that. I think that's important to mention, is that she would ask for a hug. And I think that near Christmas she did ask for a hug, and I'm pretty sure I gave it to her because, holiday season, I was like, okay, here, you can give a hug or whatever. I don't remember much about the actual hug, but I know I did hug her at least once. But I do remember her asking for hugs every once in a while. But yeah, again, that in itself is not a problem, but with the added context leading up to it, can you see how I maybe can see it as more of a red flag and stuff like that? I don't know. But like I said, this is the week before Valentine's Day, and we're talking, and I start listing off things that I think she could like about me. And it just, it wasn't, I didn't guess anything crazy, but by the end of the period, I guessed 10 things. I don't know, you think I'm a good friend, you like that I'm ambitious or something like that. I don't know, stuff like that. I don't remember exactly what I said. I do remember saying pretty. I do remember asking that and her being completely oh yeah, that kind of stuff. But then she said, okay, I will write you a letter about everything that I like about you. I think you know where this is going. So she starts writing a letter. Jim went by as normal. And then the next day, she gives me the letter. right, in period 2. And she tells me to read it later, okay? I think she told me to read it later, but I know I didn't read it right then and there. I definitely did it. So I had a study hall. I think I had a study hall. I don't remember when I read it, but I read it sometime during the day, right? So I read it, and at first it started off pretty innocent, right? It started off as like, oh, you know, you're really pretty, you're smart, you're intelligent, like you smart, intelligent. Apparently not. Yeah, it just started off with innocent things like that, and that's obviously not an issue. Why she's writing me an entire letter to profess these things to me when she can just say it, I don't understand that. But then I slowly started to understand. It didn't get anything crazy, but then she started to admit her feelings for me. Now again, that's not a big deal. I wish she didn't stare at my legs or call me pet names, but it's not a big deal. Having feelings for someone is by no means a crime, no mean harassment. That's nothing like that. I'm not trying to make it sound like it is. I'm trying to put little disclaimers here and there that certain things are just like concerning to me. Personally, it makes me uncomfortable, but I know that as a whole it's not like harassment. But this is where the more harassment starts to come in. So she starts talking about how much she likes me, just like how, you know, how infatuated she is with me, which, again, not really that big of a deal. A little possessive, maybe, a little obsessive, but not really crazy. Kind of crazy, but, you know, nothing too crazy. Then I remember the line, to this day, it still gives me chills. It still makes me feel extremely upset, and from there on I kind of just stopped reading the letter, I guess. And also, before I say the line, she also did mention, like I said, the crush would come up again, is that she mentioned how she knows that I like this guy. She said, I know how you like Fluffy Boy, but I really want to try with you anyway, that kind of stuff. So I'm just saying that she acknowledged the fact that I like someone and still, like, went for it. Like, she knew that I was completely head over heels for this guy, right? This wasn't just, like, an average crush. Like I said, this lasted 6 months. Like, in total, it lasted, like, almost a year. But, this lasted several months. She knew about this for several months. And I said that, oh, we're probably going to end up dating because I thought that he liked me, too. Spoiler alert, we didn't. But, sorry. Yeah, I just find it a little weird that she couldn't respect my own boundaries and my own interests and kind of, like, at least wait until, like, I said whether or not I liked him or if it worked out. Because it was only, like, a couple months later, like, 2 or 3, that I made a move on him. Like, not even 3 months. It had to be, like, 2, like, and then he rejected me. And then the feelings faded a few months later. And then she couldn't even wait a little bit to see how things were going and stuff like that. She had to tell me that. Again, that's just personal, like, uncomfortableness. Like, please respect it when I like someone or am in a relationship. There are so many people who don't respect the fact that I'm in a relationship and will just, like, message me asking for things or, like, you know, being like, oh, I really like you, we should do this, this, and that, and stuff like that. And it's honestly disgusting how many people think that's okay, especially over the internet. Just because it's on the internet does not make it okay either, just saying. And if someone makes you uncomfortable, block them right away. But anyway, back to the one line that I'm not gonna lie, I've been stalling because I really don't want to say it. It's the one line that, like, when I remember this story, it makes me genuinely scared. Now, when you're hearing it come out of my mouth, it might not sound as serious, but imagine reading it and having this chick calling you pet names, constantly trying to, like, touch your shoulders and, like, try to get you to hug her. Imagine, like, this girl staring at you while you're changing, okay? While you're in a vulnerable state, in a place where you hate your body, right? Or you are so down on yourself, you hate yourself so much, and you have this girl staring at you, acting like you're, like, an object, you know? Calling you stuff that you don't want to be called, that you are uncomfortable with. Now, with all that context and all that imagination, where you deal with this, not just for a couple days, for months. Like, this is for months. I dealt with this for at least 3 months, right? And then you have this line. You have the line, I want to pin you up against the wall, take your clothes off, kiss you. I think you can go out from there. Now, she doesn't go into explicit detail, totally crazy detail. And she told me she wanted to pin me up against a wall, take off my clothes, kiss me, and you know what would happen from there. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what the line was, is that you know what would happen from there, you know? implying that she wanted to, you know, that goes beyond just, oh, I like you. You know, that goes beyond just that. You have to, like, even if this person, like, even if you're confessing your feelings for someone and they don't like someone else and you think they like you back, you don't say what you want to do to them. Especially when this person likes someone. That is extremely messed up. Not to mention, you don't know what this person is comfortable with. Especially when I say, I don't like being touched. You know? You think that I'm just going to be okay reading that? Even now, even thinking about it now, even if it was from someone that, like, you know, I was okay with, like, if someone that I like said that to me, I would still be horrified. I'm just saying. It's not because she's a lesbian. It's not because I was starting to get creeped out by her calling me pet names. And even then, please don't use... I don't understand why anyone would even think that I'm just being uncomfortable or unreasonably uncomfortable. Like, that is not okay. And I want you guys to look me in the eyes. Go ahead, tell me it's okay right now to have someone write a letter to you talking about how much they love you. Like, literally, she uses the word love. I'm not kidding. Telling you how they want to pin you up against the wall and take off your clothes. And have the context that they stare at you while you're changing. Like, look me in the eyes and tell me you'd be okay with that. That's just for anyone who would disbelieve me here. But I think most of you will see why I was uncomfortable. That was, like, the final straw for me. I didn't quite do anything yet. I think it was, like, a Wednesday. So then or maybe it was I think it was a Thursday. And it was either Wednesday or Thursday, one or two. But then I go to gym class, and I'm noticeably uncomfortable, right? She could tell that I read the letter. I told her that, too. And she was like, you know, expectant. I was like, you know, I can't be with you. I pretty much I rejected her. And I was terrified to reject her. I'm not gonna lie, but I did anyway, because I felt like it had to be done. We both needed to be told no. I needed to say it out loud and be like, okay, you need to respect my boundaries. And to a certain extent, she did. She didn't try to force anything on me. And also just to, something I didn't mention is that earlier in the year, probably like November, is that there was a new student who came to our band class, and she told me that she went to the bathroom with this chick. Like, I remember seeing them both leave the classroom. Like, she wasn't sure where the bathroom was, so she showed her where it was, something like that. I know they were both out of the class together. And when she came back, Rose told me that the new kid and her made out in the bathroom. Really random. And again, I didn't ask. Maybe it wasn't bathroom or elevator, something like that. I don't know. But she told me she made out with this chick. And I looked over at the other girl. She didn't look phased. She just kind of was just there. And I was like, I didn't believe her. You know, I really didn't believe her. I never asked the new chick if she did, because, you know, I didn't want to make her uncomfortable, unlike some people. But yeah, she told me that. I don't know why she told me that to this day. I don't know if it was to see my reaction, see if I'd get jealous or something like that. It might have been for that, because I know certain people who will do stuff like that. But yeah, and again, she told me in that same letter, or maybe she told me in general. I don't remember if she told me on that day she gave me the letter, or the day, or it was in the letter, but she told me that the reason why she can't stare at me while I'm putting on chapstick is because she said she doesn't want to look at my lips. Okay, I didn't need to know that. I never really asked why she never, and I kind of was, like, confused as to why it was such a big deal. But, like, seriously, just, you don't need to make such a big deal out of her not being able to, like, it was to the point where she asked me, if you're gonna put on chapstick, just let me know so I can look away. You know, like, she literally said that to me, right? I'm going back and forth, because, like, the more I'm telling the story, the more I'm remembering as I'm going along, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, anyway. Well, I see her in gym that day, and I reject her, let her down gently. I still let her know that I'm there for her, and I do the only thing that I think I can do, even though I'm deeply uncomfortable, and at this point I was genuinely scared that she would act on her impulses, and, you know, try and touch me or anything, because at this point she was still staring at me while I was changing, you know, like, it wasn't like she calmed down after a rejection. Even for the days afterwards, the few days afterwards I was with her, she still would shamelessly stare. And it was weird. It was a very uncomfortable day, I think you could imagine. And she said, oh, I can tell you're uncomfortable. I'm going to write you another letter, right? And I was like, please don't. I didn't say that, but mentally I was like, please don't. And I was like, okay. But externally I said okay because I figured that I can't stop her, right? And, at this point, I haven't told my parents yet. I haven't told anyone yet. I haven't told anyone about this letter. I haven't told anyone about my uncomfortableness, how uncomfortable I was with this person. Yeah, but pretty much the next day, she gives me the letter, right? And it's the same deal. I read it, and it's an apology letter pretty much. Now, this is where it gets strange, okay? If you didn't think it was strange already. So pretty much, I read this letter over and over, and it's pretty much just a giant apology letter, apologizing for confessing her feelings and stuff like that. The reason why it's weird, because obviously there's nothing wrong with apologizing, but she was talking about how I am the light of her life, I am the reason why she's living, and she said, if anything happened to you, I don't know what I'd do with myself, that kind of stuff. And I think she could tell I was deeply uncomfortable with her and kind of pushing away. And I think that letter was her message to me that if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself. I've had people before, like once or twice, not that often, when I would be uncomfortable with something, I would tell them, I don't want to do this. I don't like the fact that you're saying, like I would call them. I'd be like, I call them on what they're doing. I'd be like, I don't want to do this. And then they'd say, wow, not even you are supporting me anymore. I want to die. I'm going to go, And I read, this is the first experience I had with something like that. So, at first I was like, okay, well now I have to stay with her. I don't want her to die. Because even though I was deeply uncomfortable and I thought that any day now, I was genuinely terrified that she was going to try and touch me. Because, we were normally the last ones out of the locker room, right? We took our time because we wanted to, make sure no one saw us or anything. We didn't want people to see us change. So we would take our time changing. We would, change super fast, but take, 2 minutes to actually change, if that makes sense. We wanted to make sure everyone was either out of the locker room or, past the area where we were. And, I was scared that we would be the last ones there and she would try something, That genuinely terrified me, and those thoughts plagued my mind for multiple days. And that apology letter only solidified the fact that I needed to get away from her. That was the before note was a final straw where she talked about how she wanted to do things to me and how much she loved me. That was kind of a weird thing. And then the apology just kind of solidified that, how she's talking about how she wants to die if anything were to happen to me. She said that I'm her light, pretty much. And obviously there's nothing wrong with finding someone and being like, oh wow, you literally are the sun in my life, that kind of thing. That's perfectly fine, but not when you are staring at this person's legs, calling them pet names, tapping their shoulders, talking about things that obviously I'm not comfortable with, saying you want to pin me up against the wall and take off my clothes, even though I told you multiple times that I like someone and that I don't like being touched. Makes sense. Definitely not making me uncomfortable in any way. But yeah, and keep in mind, I actually have told her to stop doing a lot of things, and she still hasn't. So she still has broken my boundaries, the pet names, the shoulder touching, asking for hugs and stuff like that. I'd be like, no, I don't want a hug or something like that. And obviously she's kept asking anyway. But yeah, then the weekend hits, and in a McDonald's, I remember I was in a McDonald's, I was eating a chicken nuggets. I was eating a 20-piece chicken nugget because I'm thick, I guess. I don't know. I'm joking. I'm not actually. I'm almost underweight. Anyway, so I remember my father was sitting there, and I'm like, I have something to tell you. So then I tell him the entire story, and he just looks at me. He's like, that wasn't something I was expecting to hear on my Saturday. Yep. And then my best friend came over, I think the day after, or it was sometime similar. I don't remember if I told her this before it happened or after it happened. I think it was a mix of the in-between. Because after this all happened, I reported it, my father called the school, and I had to go down to the guidance counselor on Monday and make sure that I told her everything, showed her the notes and everything. I talked to my mom about it, and my mom's a social worker, so she definitely knew what to do. She had to, she physically had to report this kind of stuff when you're talking about, suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. She has to report it. That's her job as a social worker. She takes care of kids with, stuff like that. So she, as a mandated reporter, I think they're called, she has to report that kind of stuff. So yeah, she was worried for both me and the other kid, Rose. So I tell my best friend about this, and just to diffuse a little bit of tension here, I still remember to this day, she's reading over the letter, and she's like, oh my God, like, she's reading it over in this room while I'm sitting over on my couch in the other area, and I just hear from the other room, oh my God, every like 5 seconds, she's like, you have to deal with this. And it was just, that was a day where I really felt like I could use a laugh, and she gave it to me. So if you're watching this, best friend, love you, baby girl. See, I say stuff like that to my best friends. Like I said, stuff like that is really not that big of a deal unless you start acting on those words, I guess you could say. And Rose was acting on those words. So I went to the guidance counselor, I told her everything, and she transferred me. She pretty much did a switch-a-roo on our classes, and it was literally the most perfect thing ever. I switched into a gym class with my best friend. Yeah, of course. And then I switched into a band class with my future boyfriend of a couple months over the summer kind of thing. So I was pretty happy, so I couldn't complain. I got away from someone who made me deeply uncomfortable, and I got 2 new people that I loved dearly. That was pretty much the end of the 10th grade fiasco. Unfortunately, there is still more. I really wish I could just end this here because I don't know how long this is going to be. I'm guessing this video is going to be over an hour. So I go down to my guidance counselor the next day. Like, one time I was with my parents, the other time I wasn't. And I go in to thank her for everything she's done for me. To thank her, like, she wasn't the one who changed my schedule, but thank her for, helping me and everything like that. She was like the assistant principal. Wait, now I'm getting my counselors mixed up. Okay, my guidance counselor fixed my schedule. The assistant principal was the one who dealt with everything. Like, listened to the story and everything. So, yeah, she was there, and I had a question on my mind because I had my suspicions, and so I decided to act on those suspicions. I looked at her, and before I left, I'm like, are her parents really dead? And I know that she lied to me a lot. Pretty much the entire story is just a bunch of her lying to me a lot and a lot and a lot about the sleeping, about the eating, about the foster care, all that kind of stuff. And the assistant principal, she looked at me, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I know you can't really tell me that, because obviously that's like a personal info, And she looked at me, and she's like, let's just say that there's a lot of things that she lied about. That is her exact words. I remember those words to this day. And that was when my blood really ran cold and stuff like that. And I was just like, thanks. And then I left. And so, yeah, she even lied to me about the thing that she constantly used up as an ultimate trap card for me to feel bad for her. She constantly felt like bringing me down like that. Okay, so there's still a little bit left of the story, just a little bit though. They're really just like small little blurbs, not really important to the overall message of the story, but I'm just going to say that I did have 2 experiences with her after, free experiences actually. The one is smaller, but free experiences after the whole switcheroo school version of the restraining order. And I just have to say is that my school is not exactly the greatest school in the world. Obviously, you got that impression when I talked about the physical education being not exactly a good course to take, but I'm kind of required to take it though. But I do have to commend them for how they handled this situation because they really did act fast. They made sure I was completely comfortable. And something important that I need to mention is that the assistant principal, the girl I was talking to, Rose was apparently down. She's caused issues with other students as well, so it wasn't just me. There were many other people that she has made feel uncomfortable. She didn't go into the details about how Rose made them uncomfortable or what she did, but Rose was on the assistant principal's radar, So it wasn't just me. I'm not trying to make it sound like I wasn't an isolated case, is what I'm saying. That this girl, Rose, has done a lot to others or told similar stories. So pretty much after that, it's funny that like 2 days afterwards, I'm walking to class, and I decided to take a different way just in case, she finds me somehow. And of course, I take the one way that she actually is going, and she's walking with Juliana actually. And I left early, right? I left my class early. It was empty hallway, so it was just or at least it felt like it was just the three of us. But if there weren't that many people at all, it had to be at most 10 people, including the three of us. So I was just walking past, and she didn't make any contact, thank God, but they told me that if she made any contact, try to talk to me, to immediately come down to the guidance counselor and report her. But she never made contact with me after this. So yeah, so Juliana got mentioned again. Good job, girl. You did nothing wrong. You're perfectly fine. You were just existing. So yeah, I didn't see her for the rest of the year after that. That was the last case. That was the last time I was ever alone with her. However, something did happen not too long ago, actually. You see, with the pandemic, I don't remember anything anymore. I think this was pre-pandemic, but I think it was 2020 still. I think it might have been like January at the latest, or at the earliest, I mean. It's either January or February of 2020, so this is 2 years later now. And I went to Dunkin' Donuts with my dad. It's always my dad walking in on these things, I don't know. But it was funny, it wasn't really funny, but I have a couple of friends who work at Dunkin' Donuts, right? And that day I found out that Rose also works at Dunkin' Donuts. So I'm there, I was waiting for my ice cream or something, because, ice cream in January, totally illogical. Don't judge me. Anyway, or maybe it's a milkshake, I don't remember. Anyway, that's not important to the story, why am I saying that? So we're just talking like normal. My dad gave me $2 to tip the guy who took care of me. So I'm looking and everything, and then I see Rose working there, and at first I was like, no, that can't be her. That it's probably just my mind playing tricks on me. Someone who looks similar. Maybe it's starting to really like affect me. And then I look even closer and I realize, oh my God, that is her. And I mean, listen, I don't have that many scary stories or any like creepy. I don't have that many like experiences that have happened to me yet. Okay, I've seen like some stuff that's weird, but not as much as other people. Is what I'm trying to say. Is that so? When I say that I completely froze and felt more terrified than I ever had in my entire life, I'm being 100% dead serious. In my mind, I just got all, like, I pushed this story out of my mind for, like, years now. Literally, like, a couple years. I was like, I don't want to think about this, right? Because that's, like, something that, one and done. I don't want to ever have to deal with something like that again. But I see her there, and it's just like all those memories came flooding back all at once. And I somehow got paler than ever. And I know that because my father's like, why are you so pale? What's wrong? And then I'm like, she's here. He told me to go wait in the car. And that was just the single most terrifying moment of my life. I just thought I'd get that out there. Is that you will never hear me tell a story that is scarier than that unless it's a story that happens in the near future. Here's hoping that no scary stories that are scarier than that happen in the near future. But who knows anymore. But something I didn't mention is that on Valentine's Day, she gave me a Valentine's Day card even after I rejected her. It had nothing inside. It was just a cute little card. I guess you could say it's something that you give to your friends, but I don't know. It was still Valentine's Day, a little off after I rejected her, but it's whatever. It's just a detail that I thought I'd bring up. But yeah, the last time I had an experience with her is pretty much, it happened junior year, when I was walking with a new friend of mine. She was a friend of my best friend, so I always knew her, but, I really got to know her that year because we had a lot of classes together, so I was walking with her, and we were talking about, like, at this point, the only people who knew about this story was my parents, my best friend, my guy best friend, and at that time, that was it. That was all the people. A few more people know now, like, obviously my stream knows, one of my closer online friends knows. It's just like when you know, like, when you get close enough to me to know my real name online, that's when you will hear the story, so then you don't call me any pet names or anything by accident, because, it's okay. But anyway, yeah, so I'm talking with my new friend, and she is mentioning how she has gym this year, right? And she has gym with Rose, and normally that's not really that big of a red flag, because the new friend, we're just going to call her a new friend, has her own friends that she walks with in gym, so it's not really a big deal. But every once in a while, when new friends are like, like a little distant or like, absent or something like that, Rose will come up and try to talk to new friend. And new friend informed me that Rose tried telling her that her parents are dead. And right there, a year later, I wasn't as scared as I was, but I just looked at her, I'm like, get as far away as humanly possible. Because if she hasn't learned her lesson now, then when is she ever going to learn it? You know, that's a whole year later. Like, it was more than a year. Like, this was, like, in January of the next year, right? So that was, like, a whole year, right? So that's crazy. Isn't that crazy that she didn't learn her lesson an entire year later? Like, she lost the person she claimed was her light, and she didn't learn the lesson. She's still lying to people, still trying to get their attention, trying to get their sympathy. Now, obviously, she probably doesn't get enough attention at home. Listen, I don't understand. I'm not going to say I understand. I'm not going to try and understand because, like, my parents may be a little strict, but I am fortunate in a sense where I do have two parents, and I do have two parents who support me, and I'm very fortunate for that, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm not going to pretend to understand having, like, parents who reject their kids. I'm not going to try and pretend. But, I mean, there's also, like, there's a difference between just trying to constantly give her attention and, like, knowing your limits and learning your lesson and, like, just crying out for help. You know, there's a difference. There's a difference between telling someone you murdered someone and, you know, just needing friends. There's a complete difference. And Rose was on the side of, I'm going to tell people that I murdered someone. You know why that makes people uncomfortable? Because no one likes to hear that someone they're getting to know, a kid, murdered someone. No one likes to hear that. But, yeah, so I told new friend to get out of there as fast as possible. And that was the last incident with Rose. Now, every once in a while, I'll ask my two friends who work there. One of those friends is also has scoliosis, the same friend. I'll ask every once in a while how Rose is, like, does Rose seem any, because, like, even though she completely emotionally manipulated me to try and get her to try to get me to stay with her, and, you know, completely made me beyond uncomfortable, and, you know, calling me pet names that I still can't get over, it just, sometimes, I wonder, because this was still someone who was my friend for several months before I got uncomfortable. It had to be a good 3 months that I was, like, really didn't have much suspicion of her. You know, so I was still, like, I'm curious. Now, apparently Rose is, Ron now, which, again, is fine, but, you know, I just want to explain that I'm not calling Rose a him simply because, A, I don't know if it's 100% true, so I don't want to be disrespectful, and 2, I am talking about my experience from when him was a her, so I'm just going to refer as a her. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the story. There's nothing else I can really say about it. I'm still pretty upset about the situation. As you can tell, I probably looked visibly upset a few times during the video, but I'm not sure how long this video will be, and I'm sorry if it's really long, but I feel like it's important to cover all the aspects. I might think of another thing or detail, but that was a whole story of lies and deceit and just uncomfortableness, and the reason why I'm making this video, I think you could have figured it out, is to raise awareness, because for the longest time, the reason why I didn't tell anyone sooner about why I was so uncomfortable was because I felt like it wasn't a big deal, you know? Like, I was just like, no, this is normal, like, friends are okay with this, right? Even though it made me personally uncomfortable, I thought I was just being sensitive. But no, you're not being sensitive. If something makes you uncomfortable, you tell that person that it's making you uncomfortable. You don't wait. You don't do anything like that. I realize now that I should have completely left her so many weeks before I did. I should have left her as soon as she started, like, staring at me while I was changing. As soon as she started mentioning, I don't know, it's just, I should have left sooner. And that's my biggest regret, is that I might not have had that letter that completely still plagues my mind if I left earlier. And there's nothing I can do about it now except for tell people is that it's okay to tell someone no. It's 100% okay. And if they can't handle the fact that you said no, get out of their sight, because they're not trying to see you at your best. They don't genuinely care about you. They want something they can control. And I think that's what Rose wanted from me. She wanted something that she could control. And I'm never, ever going to lie down and let someone control me, ever. Ever. No one gets to dictate my thoughts or actions or who I'm with, who I'm not with. That is never going to happen. No one is ever going to dictate my choices and my will, and I'm sharing this story because that is the message I'm trying to display. And I hope that got across well enough, and this is the first time I've done a really long and personal, for that matter, story on my channel, or in general. Like, I haven't talked about this openly in probably a few months, definitely half a year at least. The last time I've told someone the full story was one of my internet friends, and even then I didn't go into nearly as much detail as I'm going into now. So this is probably the most in detail I've gone about this story since I told the assistant principal about it. I've told my internet friend about it, and I told new friend about it, but those are the two most recent cases, and after that I haven't mentioned it because I didn't see a need to. But even then, like today, it still bothers me, you know? But I hope you enjoyed, and I appreciate it if you watched this far. I really do. I'll try to keep the outro quick, not like my other videos where I talk for like 2 minutes. But thank you for supporting me. And like I said, this is no like popular person. This is no one like in the internet. Like, no one's gonna know who this is. This is just my personal story. I'm not doing this for any other motive other than to just get out awareness, because I know there's a lot of cases where there's allegations against some TikToker. I mean, you see one of my recent videos where I went into allegations on a TikToker. I know people make allegations on other people, and I'm not saying all of them are false. I'm not saying all of them are true. I'm not saying either of those things. I'm just saying that I know that people might expect me to name drop someone here, but I'm not. I'm not going to do that. I don't have anyone in mind that I should name drop. I'm joking. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I really hope you enjoyed, and I doubt Rose is watching this, but Rose, if you are watching this, I'll just give my message to Rose. Listen, man, you made me deeply uncomfortable, and I can tell that you didn't learn your lesson, and you might think that the story is exaggerated from your perspective. From my perspective, this is what happened. This is the truth. This is exactly what happened. You can twist it in your head as much as you want. You can say that, oh, that didn't happen, this didn't happen. No, this is 100% what happened. Like I said, the parts that I was hazy on, I left out. I went in completely on the details that I remembered, because it's hard not to remember these big things like that, okay? You made me deeply uncomfortable, but I still hope you're okay. I know that even if you were lying to me about your parents being dead, about not eating for a month, about sleeping outside in the cold, even if you were lying about that, like killing someone, like, it's not okay to lie about that kind of stuff, but I just hope that you get the help you need, and I hope that in the future you do really well, and I hope you really do learn your lesson and stop telling people these horrible lies, and I just hope that you can forgive me for being so blunt about it, but I'm not going to hide my feelings anymore, because if you learn your lesson, if you don't even have to apologize to me about anything, if you just learn your lesson and move on, I will 100% forgive you. But until then, I really hope you get better, and I really hope that you're doing okay now. Thank you guys for watching. Shameless plug time. In the description, I will put my Instagram, my Discord server, all the stuff that I use, like my camera, my mic, my editing program, that kind of stuff. I'll put it in the description. My Twitch too. We're trying to get to 150 by the end of the year. If you could help out with that, that would be amazing. I love you so much. Thank you. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing for more like long videos. I'm trying to get longer videos out. I really don't enjoy posting like 10-minute videos. I want to do more 20 and up videos, which I know this will probably be an hour. But please consider liking the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Let's hope we can get like 230 subscribers by the end of the year. I don't want to be too ambitious because I already have my Twitch that I'm focusing on, but hopefully we can get there by the end of the year. And until next time, I will see you guys later. And again, thank you for the support, especially on this video, especially because this is a rough one. But I'll see you later, and peace out, Hazel Gang.